This is a quick demonstration on how you can connect to the Kodaris API from Infor OS. So once you log into Infor OS, you can navigate over to the API gateway. And from here, we need to add a new API under the available APIs section. So click Add, and then click Create New. For the application name, we can enter Kodaris API, or just Kodaris is fine. For the suite name, we'll enter Kodaris API. And then for the API context, we'll use Kodaris. And we can also upload an icon. For the description, I'll just enter API connection to Kodaris. And then we need at least one target endpoint, so I'm going to go ahead and add that now. The target endpoint URL is going to be the URL to your Kodaris system. So you can grab that by, it's the same domain that you'll use to log into the operations portal. So in this case, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to use content.kodaris.com. And then for the proxy context, we can use system, since this is going to be the Kodaris system APIs that we're connecting to. And proxy security OAuth 2.0 is fine. For the target endpoint security, you can select API key. And for the key name, you'll enter authorization. That's the authorization header. And then for the key value, you can head over to your Kodaris operations portal, navigate to employees, and there's a button up here to create an API user. Click that, and I'm going to enter a name here. And then you can click create user. This gives you an API key you can copy, and then you can assign roles. It's important to copy the key first because this is the only time you'll be able to see it. And I'm just going to assign the administrator role for testing. So heading back over to Infor OS, we need to paste that key into the key value, but it does have to be prefixed with the word bearer. So bearer space and then key. Pasted that in there. And now we can click save, this little save icon up here. And now that's been successfully saved. So now we can head over to the documentation section by clicking the documentation icon or going to the details. And down here under the documentation tab, we can click the plus icon. For this, we need to enter the name of the documentation. In this case, it's just Kodaris System API. And for the type, choose Swagger. Now to get the Swagger spec URL, you'll just need to head over to your Kodaris Swagger interface, which is under the /services URL here. And it'll show up here depending on which API you select. In this case, we want the system API, so we can copy the Swagger spec URL here. And then head back to Infor OS and paste it in. Now you do need one more query parameter here. You need to add an ampersand and enter in the query param name of source equals Infor. And that should be all you need. Then click save. And the documentation will initialize. It may take a few seconds. Here we go. So now we see all the APIs available, just like we would if we were looking at the Kodaris Swagger interface. We can try out one of these APIs if we want to test the connection. For example, if we go to the category list endpoint, we can hit try it out, execute, and we can see we successfully got back a list of categories in the system. For example, drywall. So our API connection is working and it's authorized using our API key that we set up here. Now, if we want to use this API, for example, in an API connection in Ion, we can head over to the Ion tab and we can go over to Connect, API Flows, click Add, and just for testing purposes, I'm going to add an API connection here. In the details or properties section, we can scroll over and click the select button here. And it gives us an option to select the product, scroll down, and you can select your Kodaris API that you added. And then to view the available APIs, you can just click the search icon and it gives you the full list of the Kodaris APIs that are available, but then you can also search. So if we wanted that category list API, we can see we found it here. And you can click on that one and select OK, and it pulls in all the information for the API request. And we can see it pre-fills an example body here. If we go over to the request body and click example, give it a second. And here we go. So it's loading in these sample values and all the configuration needed from the Swagger spec that we set up. And this should give you everything you need to actually make authorized API calls to Kodaris from Infor OS. Thanks.